Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back to the PHNX Mercury podcast. I am your host, Erika Lee Day. I am joined by my esteemed partner in crime, Stephen Pridgeon Garner. I'm so excited to get into today's show. We are also joined by a very special guest. I have been itching to get her onto the podcast since Media Day, okay? And we're going to get into that just a little bit on what I saw at Media Day. And so we have Johanna of En Breve news. Oh my goodness. I literally knew that was going to happen within the first 45 seconds of the show. But welcome onto our show, Johanna. I'm so excited to have you. How are you on this fine Wednesday?
I am wonderful. Thank you both for having me on and looking forward to talking some Phoenix Mercury and what's ahead.
Yes, absolutely. Shout out to all of you guys joining us in the live chat today. I see my good mother as always in the chat, Andy, Christina, Tyler. We've got the whole gang as always. If you are tapped in with us, don't forget to hit the like button and leave a 5-star review and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. But without further ado, I'm really excited to kind of talk to Johanna. She is in a really pretty unique space in the media, and I want to say one of a kind, but I also don't want to lie, but I really don't think there's anyone else really doing what you're doing with the bilingual coverage of sports in the Valley. Am I wrong?
To my knowledge, you are correct. So if there's anyone out there, go ahead and you can always be corrected. But I just wanted to do something different, to what you mentioned, Erica. Do something bilingual, especially in sports. There's so much more that can be highlighted, that can be covered, and I don't think there's enough coverage just all the way around with sports in the Valley, especially when it comes to the Latino representation and bringing that coverage to the Spanish language.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to take us back to my very first impression of you. I'm thinking about Media Day, and we're sitting there in the room with Diana Taurasi, and Brittany Griner comes in just a few minutes early, right before her little media podium moment. And you step up and you're about to ask Diana a question, and it's fully in Spanish. And Diana is not fazed by it at all. It's pretty hilarious to most of the other media members, truthfully. But the best reaction by far was from BG, and she's just sitting there dying, laughing, and just having a ball at her teammate, having so much fun with the unique coverage. And so, what's it kind of like to be in such a unique place where you can ask, these Latino players these questions in their, native language and help them feel more comfortable, put them and paint them in a different light? Just how what's been your favorite part about kind of, like I said, bringing a light to these athletes?
For me, it's just having that conversation to them in Spanish, and some of them is their native language, or bringing that extended coverage. Yes, Diana, she's bilingual. You have the coverage in English, but bringing something unique, something different, and also being able, yes, having that Spanish that conversation in Spanish, but also being able to translate that uniqueness in that part of that culture and translating that into English. So doing a little bit, like for me, you can say I'm bicultural, being that I'm born here in the US, but with the Hispanic Latino roots. So bringing some of that culture into what I'm doing with En Breve News. And there's a lot of us out there that that we want to see more of that and have that representation. And that's how I also want to bring that into the sports aspect. But it's just awesome, and having like Brittany Griner or like Tasha too. She's had some really unique reactions in the press room. So it's really fun, and they even to them it's like, oh, like what did she say, or like they're wanting to know the language and what's behind that too.
It brings a really fun level of curiosity to the press room that we don't get to see very often, where it makes the athletes curious about you. And it's been really fun to watch that dynamic grow throughout the season between you and the athletes. I'm really excited to kind of watch that continue to grow throughout the season. You obviously decided to do this in the Valley. What makes the Valley such a special place to do what it is that you are doing? And how has the Valley welcomed you guys with an open arms to be able to, get your foot in the door as far as being in the media?
I'm a native from Phoenix, from the Valley. So just kind of just going back to seeing, okay, I see this English language media, and then I see the Spanish language media, And there's a breakdown in wanting to have that, bring those two worlds together and see how I could merge them, and be able to go ahead and translate that to what the Hispanic culture needs and bring more of a community unification, community unity. And that's, have it be community news or have it be that in sports. And me having started my media career in sports and then dabbling into news and into community, I was like, there's something that can be done here, and more can be done, which then in retrospect, just going back with what I mentioned, that's where this was born. And it's just been very welcoming. The support has been tremendous. Been in the media space for 13 years now. So that definitely has helped to build this new platform and bring the audience and the support of many people that are, wanting to see this and wanting to see more of it.
Yeah, I like first of all the uniqueness that comes with your coverage. You already talked about how, and Erika did as well, how it's pretty much one of one, in especially and specifically in the Mercury media rooms. And you all have also detailed the reactions it gets in terms of attentiveness from everybody in the room, the cameraman, including the players at the podium and the rest of the media members. I just wanted to just kind of hear a little bit more about your story, how you came to be where you are now, and if you could also shine some light on the rest of your teammates at En Breve News as well.
Um, I'll shine some light on me and where I come from.
Yeah.
Just a little bit more. I'm, born and raised in the Valley, and just for me, it just came a love of sports. I love sports, so that's where I dabbled in, and I just love to write. Have a passion for writing. Have a passion for bringing a uniqueness, a new take to whether that be a player and doing something more than actually just covering the game, or if it's covering a game and the X's and O's, doing it in a unique form more than okay, there's injury or having okay, this player dominated. Just kind of have it be involve everyone that's involved, from the coaches to the teams and whatnot. And if, something more grows from there, wonderful. And it's just me wanting to do, what I love. And it's just a passion. And it just has continually grown and evolved into what is En Breve News. I started with in radio with the Sports Cave and then evolved into Insight Sports Network, took some time off and realized that I wanted to do more, and that's where En Breve News became about.
Okay. And can you just kind of speak to, especially with us all emphasizing the uniqueness of your coverage, can you kind of speak to the importance or the responsibility that comes with you being able to bridge that gap and extend the reach of everything happening in our space as well as on the court to not just people who might identify with me and Erika, but also people who identify with yourself and your teammates and your brand as well?
Um, oh my goodness, I don't know how to put that into words. It's a lot. Just to really speak on the uniqueness. Just again, doing something different. Doing especially the bilingual take. We don't always translate every single story that we put out there as far as content, but those that we see that can be more of an impact, or also, we're more than community news and more than sports, even or sports in the community. Also, highlighting resources and, those are the things that really don't get, yes, you are informed about, but then you go and try to find the information, especially for the Hispanic culture or minorities, it's not always as easily accessible. So trying to change that. Or you do see this, sports teams in the community and what they're doing. You hear about it maybe on a newscast, but then you go try to learn more about it. There's really not, too much that's out there when you go and look for that. So that's some of the uniqueness that I'm trying to change and bring those worlds together.
And I guess my other big question for you, we could definitely have a much more elaborate conversation, but for time's sake, can you just speak to your relationship with the one and only Diana Taurasi? Can you just kind of speak about your first interaction with her? Obviously, as soon as she sees that you grab the microphone, she lights up and she like ups her posture and she's like embracing, getting ready for the questions so that she can, go back and forth with you. Can you just kind of speak to the establishment of that relationship and how it's evolved over the years?
Yeah, we're now covering Phoenix Mercury for, I lost count, third or fourth year now. So it's been a gradual, relationship that has progressed over time. But it's just it's been good. It's been, even for me, it can be a little bit like, oh my gosh, like to what you just mentioned. It's it's an honor, really, especially seeing these athletes that are so competitive and what it is that what they've accomplished, their careers. And Diana, she's the GOAT. She's set so many records. She's just a talent out there on the court, not only for the Phoenix Mercury, but also for the W and just women's sports in general. And seeing her career, I started seeing her as as a fan, and in the W, and seeing how she's grown and developed as a player and as a person as well. Now seeing how she's a 6-time Olympian, and in building that relationship, I like to have the approach of players, person as a person, not more, more than a player. We are all humans. So that's the approach that I take, and with an insightfulness. So I approach that, whether that I do a coverage in English or be that in Spanish, and of course always being that respectful of them, and everything that they who they are and what they've done, and that has helped me to build that relationship with a lot of these players and athletes, and especially with Diana, and having that uniqueness with the language, and to be able to highlight her in a different platform is just really, really special to see, and how she reacts. And going back to the WNBA All-Star game and having a one-on-one interview with her, it was unforeseen, but it was a nice exclusive to have. And at the end of that, just her being excited and honored to be able to share her story. And after that, in the conclusion, she just gave a thank you and a really nice, exciting, warm embrace, which was really nice to have developed, from where I started to where it is now. It's just amazing.
Well, speaking of the Mercury, Erika is practically itching, jumping out of her seat, gonna blow through the ceiling of her house. WNBA is back tomorrow, people, and we got some things to talk about before you go. We got just a little minute, so I just want to know what you are most excited to see from this team in the second half of the season. We spoke with Nate Tibbetts on Monday. You've spoken with Diana since the break. What do you think we can expect, and what are you, like I said, just most excited to kind of watch unfold?
I am excited to see how they come out, especially, come on, we have to acknowledge we had 3 Mercury Olympians, are coming back to the Valley with gold medals, and seeing that performance out in the court, during that time period, and how that's going to transfer over to the Mercury court. To yes, they're gonna be in Chicago and for their first game, but I think that's gonna see how that transfers over, not only to the court, but also how it goes on with the other players as well. How they're able to go ahead and bring that energy into the team. And there's a we're seeing how they're playing well, they're meshing well, the chemistry has been tremendous all the way around. And I'm just excited for the second half, because there is major potential, and this team reminds me a lot of the team that went to the WNBA finals just a few seasons ago. So that's what I'm excited for, because they are very similar in play, and the mentality is definitely there.
Absolutely. Well, I'm so thankful that we were able to make some time to have you on the show today, and I'm so thankful we're going to get to have you back on, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, maybe for a little bit longer. That being said, though, where can the people find you?
They can find me, Johanna Rosalye, on Twitter, and you just JROSALYE is my handle. That's across all my social media platforms. And then you can find En Breve News on Twitter as En Breve _news. That's where we have, of course, Instagram and Facebook as well. Where you just do En Breve News search, will pop up for you. Follow us and go to our website, enbrevenews.net as well for more content.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I really look forward to Sunday and hopefully seeing you in the media room and hopefully hearing some questions.
Yes,
Amazing.
definitely.
Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Stephen.
That was fun.
It was really fun. We've been really lucky this week. I mean, I know we're already lucky. We got WNBA, domestic play returning. Erika has literally almost itched her skin off of her body this week because she's just so damn excited to get to the works. But before we go any further, I didn't give my favorite big hatter, fellow Big 12er, Jeff Sims believer, Eric.
Yeah, I'm jumping in on this now. Yeah. I'll let you get away with that. I gotta jump in also. Like I'm trying to figure out why we don't have the normal setup for you guys as far as frames go. So bear with me as they jump around all over the screen.
We jumping around. We out here.
I hope none of y'all have epilepsy.
Yeah, I'm gonna blame StreamYard for that one. We're doing a little dance. Okay. But yeah, no, listen, I like Jeff Sims, but you gotta calm down a little bit. All right. You gotta calm down a little bit.
It's been such a fun thing for like 2 weeks. Like I can't let it rest until like football season actually starts. You know what I mean? Maybe once that starts, I can simmer down. Is that a deal?
Maybe. I bet you won't simmer it down though.
Well, I don't think we see Jeff Sims play a lot. So like I don't think he's gonna give
until
me
Sunday
for roast.
He'll play on Sundays.
I feel like I'm gonna see fellow Marana High graduate Trenton Board Gay before I see Jeff Sims. Am I wrong or right?
You might be right, but
I love a dub.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, back to the Mercury. Thank you for that, Eric. Thank you for helping with our show today. And thank you for all of the work that you do behind the scenes for this pod. We really appreciate you.
Sorry for giving everybody epilepsy with everything moving around 5 seconds ago. My apologies.
We forgive you, Eric. That being said, though, we got some housekeeping to get to. First of all, I didn't ask you this at the top of the hour. Steven, how's your week been? It's Wednesday. I haven't seen you since Monday. Actually, I guess that's not true. I literally saw you yesterday. Huh.
That's crazy. Yeah. You already forgot about the podcast we recorded like a little over 24 hours ago.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm doing good. I've been busy. Podcast on Monday, podcast yesterday that you clearly forgot about. Forgot about that. We had a podcast today that we're on now. Had multiple very fun guests, although the Nate one was pre-recorded. Everybody else got to see it on Monday with Monday's episode. Everybody was excited. They enjoyed the conversation multiple conversations we had with him. I'm assuming that from what I've seen, everybody enjoyed having Johanna on the episode today as well. It's been a fun week. And needless to say, one last sleep, as Angel Reese mentioned earlier, and basketball is back. So there's a lot to be excited about tomorrow. How about you? How's your week been so far?
I want y'all to know that as soon as I turn my ring light off and I unplug everything, I'm laying my head down and I'm putting my eyes to sleep because then it's time. It's basketball time, folks. I'm really excited. I had a great day. Went up to Phoenix, said goodbye to our good pal of the show, Jacob Franklin. You know, we had to do one for the big guy. And if you watch the Wildcat show, then you know I've had quite the day. And just to take a look at some comments really quick, you are on the right channel for the Cardinal show. You just didn't make it quite to the right pod. So keep on clicking around and you might just get there. That being said, though, we do got to plug our friends over at PHNX because y'all see this tough shirt I got on? Y'all see that, right? Mm-hmm. You can get all this and more on the PHNX locker. And so I just want to give them a shout out because you guys should all go become a diehard. Right now, as I speak this, go to gophnx.com. Become a diehard. You get a free shirt a diehard membership card. You get discounts on big events, and you get to hang out with all of us in the Discord chat. And quite frankly, I'm not sure that there's anything else more fun to be doing on days off where there has been no Mercury play. We've had quite a lot of fun in the Discord chat. That being said, there's some things we got to get to. And I'm going to start with some things that we kind of already knew about with some injuries in, before our weekend. We're going to set some expectations for Mercury fans that you're not going to be seeing Charisma Osborne and you will not be seeing Beck Allen all weekend at the bare minimum. Do we know much about next week? No, we do not. If we knew, would we tell you? I can't promise the answer is yes, but I like to think so. And so, that being said, this leaves the Mercury in kind of a unique position. We have kind of talked about how they could have a completely different look after the All-Star break, but now we know for certain that they will have a little bit of a different look, considering they will not have Beck Allen in that starting lineup for at least the first week of play here. That being said, there's also been a little bit of movement in the terms of other teams that kind of all play into this, and there's a lot of questions surrounding the Mercury and their roster spots right now. And so we're going to kind of talk about that, but we just wanted to at first mention the fact that the Merc will be without Beck Allen this weekend.
Yeah, it's a very tough loss. Obviously, we've emphasized the value that Beck Allen has, whether she scores 5 points or she scores 15 points, whether she knocks down no 3-pointers or she knocks down 4. Her value extends well past anything that the box score metrics can show and display. And I think we see it when she's not on the floor, how there's an adjustment that comes with not having that type of player that helps to connect and bridge the gap, but also uphold all the principles that Nate likes to get into offensively, but as well and even more so on the other side of the floor defensively. Natasha Cloud can't be the defender that she's been this season without Beck Allen being able to step up and guard primary ball handlers out on the perimeter. And by that same measure, the nuance to their defensive process is not quite the same when Beck Allen isn't there. That's just speaking to the importance of her with the intricacies that everything Nate is establishing with this team. So that's going to be a tough loss to replace. Naturally, it presents Sophie Cunningham with the opportunity to reinsert herself into the starting lineup. There will be some adjustment because Sophie, as we spoke to a few episodes ago, has been, by my opinion, the front runner for 6th player of the year. And the liberation that's come with her being in that role to where she can come in and she can, by her verbiage, as well as Nate Tibbetts and Kalia Copper, let that MF fly, not have to come in and worry about stepping on people's toes or breaking the flow. She's coming in and she's being tasked with getting up 3-point opportunities ad nauseum. That's going to change a little bit with her being in the starting lineup. In addition to just generally how she's featured, the volume of touches and the types of touches that she's going to get when she's spending time with the starting unit. I do think there will be some adjustment that comes with that. I don't think it'll be like alarming or something that's going to completely derail them from their process, because as we talked about earlier this season as well, although Sophie Cunningham and Rebecca Allen are very different basketball players in terms of their approaches and what they bring to the court, there is some overlap in there to where you can play somewhat similar styles of basketball on both sides of the floor if you're swapping one end for the other, which we've seen quite literally in the flow of the rotation with Nate Tibbetts going into the Olympic/All-Star break. So keep an eye on that, Sophie, what the team's minutes look like when she's on the floor with the starters. How consistently has Nate blended her in her regular rotation, getting minutes with the reserve units so that she can get the shots up that she desires, and just generally how they uphold what we've known to understand is their defensive process with her in place of Rebecca Allen.
And I see Dylan AZ's comments. So with Allen's injury, can we sign Billings like now? And that's actually our next little topic here. So Eric, if you could do me a favor and bring up the Dallas Wings tweet, I'll just read it for our audio only listeners. Roster update: Satu Sabali, Maddie Siegrist, and Jaylen Brown are scheduled to return to play within the first week following the Olympic break. Per league policy, hardship players Monique Billings and Odyssey Sims have been released. Now, Stephen and I have spoken at length on the value of not only Monique Billings at this point, but also Odyssey Sims. Both players have a role in this league. And in my opinion, either player could find a role within the Phoenix Mercury. That being said, like I said, this does present an interesting situation for the Mercury in order to kind of make some decisions as to what they want, because Eric, actually, before I'm going to ask you just to pull up the next tweet, because I feel like in order to talk about the Dallas Wings tweet, we kind of have to talk about this other tweet from our good friend Rachel Galligan. Gabby Williams is weighing her WNBA options, but also considering remaining in France for the rest of the summer to rest and capitalize on momentum around her Olympic performance. Sources tell Winsider that her decision will likely come down to whether or not she will be cored or not. A central issue will be the team's commitment to not court her. The current teams in play are Seattle, New York, and Phoenix. Now, Steven and I actually just discussed this the other day. There's a lot of potential here for this team with any three of the players that we just spoke about: Gabby Williams, Odyssey Sims, or Monique Billings. Again, all three of them look very different coming onto the Phoenix Mercury, but all three of them bring something very unique. And in my opinion, any three would tip the riches on Nate's riches scale that we've talked about all season.
Yeah, you are very much correct on that. I want to make sure I quote this correctly too. I have a very good friend on Twitter and in real life, actually, Mr. Christian 808s. You might know him as 808s and Snack Breaks on Twitter. That was his former handle. Nonetheless, he had a tweet. He covers the Dallas Wings as well as the Seattle Storm. He had a tweet in response to the news from the Dallas Wings from I believe it was on Monday when this news got released. Just kind of saying that if he was a bettor, he would put money on at least one of Odyssey Sims or Monique Billings returning to the Dallas Wings for the rest of the season. Naturally, with Satu Sabali coming back, with Natasha Howard being healthy, Maddie Seegers being healthy, you already have Tierra McCowan. You also already have Kalani Brown. Just don't know where the minutes are going to come in the front court for this group. We already saw Monique Billings go from starting when she originally came to the team. She had a solid game even against the Phoenix Mercury in the 40-point game that Erika Ogunbowale had at the Footprint Center. That was one of the first games from Monique Billings with the Dallas Wings. She already had made a transition from starting to being a reserve type of player as Natasha Howard came back to good health standing. That's going to be double down with Maddie Seegers coming back, who was a player that was certainly carving out a niche with that team. And then it's going to be triple down upon once Satu Sabali, the team's bona fide second best player, arguably their most important player in terms of connecting and helping them play the style of basketball that helped them reach the second round in the playoffs last season, coming back and being fully healthy, as we saw in the Olympics. I think there's going to be a tough fight for minutes. There's going to have to be dispersed about with the Dallas Wings in the front court in particular, and you can add Jaylen Brown to that mix. Jaylen is not necessarily a front court piece, but she does play a wing position for the team. No pun intended. So I think there's too many mouths to feed within that group. So by way of that, I don't think that Monique Billings will be coming back to the Dallas Wings, just from my perspective. I would certainly put money on Odyssey Sims returning, however. Odyssey's she's been their second leading scorer upon being inserted into the lineup. And in the few games that Erika was not available, she took it upon herself to take every under that teams were giving her a pick and roll and drop down pick and roll pull up three after pick and roll pull up three after paint touch after lefty layup and one, talking to whoever it is she just laid up on, to getting stops and picking up the ball 3/4 court for a player that's not the youngest and not the most spry in terms of her advanced basketball age. She just continues to be a spark. It honestly is a riddle for me that she didn't make the team outright prior to the season starting, considering what she's done in seasons past with this team. I just don't think there's no way that they let Odyssey walk out of the state of Texas without being re-signed back to the Dallas Wings. She's just too important to everything that they're trying to establish, And if they're going to dig themselves out of the hole that they've kind of seen themselves in, mostly because of the injury adversity that they've seen this season, it's going to have a large, hefty, left-handed play from Odyssey Sims involved in all of that. So I don't think that they'll let Odyssey roll. She'll be back in Dallas. Which leads us to the next point. Point number 2, Monique Billings. Erika, can you just inform our audience what one of the biggest things that Monique Billings brings to a team is in terms of her skill and impact on the game?
I want to say the thing you're looking for me to say is rebounding. Am I wrong?
Bingo. Correct.
It's almost like Erika knows what she's talking about, y'all.
Don't celebrate too quick, though, because I got another question for you.
Oh, okay.
What's been one of the biggest kind of bugaboos for the Phoenix Mercury this season, whether Brittany Griner's not been in the lineup or BG's been in the lineup?
Rebounding.
Correct. So naturally, you look at Monique Billings, you look at what she brings as a baseline and foundation in terms of a role that she can directly inject herself into. She doesn't have to do things outside of that if she's on the Phoenix Mercury and in their context. She's going to rebound the basketball. And I do think that's something that is going to be, like I mentioned a couple of episodes ago, actually, one of the most chief things that this team will have to address in this latter 18 games of the season, because rebounds win championships. Defense wins championships too, but they go hand in hand. They're not mutually exclusive. You can't be a great defensive team without grabbing rebounds. You also can't win a championship without checking off both of those boxes. You can't do one. You can't do 1.5. It's got to be 2 outright. And that's something that Monique would directly address. Should she be brought into the Phoenix Mercury context, I also think she would be insulated extremely well to where you can see some of the other dynamics of her game glow as well. She's a fairly solid screener. She's a blue-collar player in general that would bring a different type of edge to this team, particularly from the front court, in a manner that is extremely unique and extremely akin as well to the things that we talk about Kahleah Copper and Natasha Cloud and Diana Taurasi bring to the backcourt in terms of being dogs and just getting after it and having a certain type of energy. Monique plays a style of basketball when she's grabbing 7, 8 offensive rebounds and just boxing players out and sending them to the sideline or sending them out the picture that quite literally engages the crowd. And that's something that we actually had a conversation with Sophie Cunningham about prior to the break. That's their biggest thing. They're not being able to get those rebounds to close the defensive possessions after they do a fairly solid job in that first interval before the first shot goes up, keeping teams to 1 shot and getting those box outs to where they're putting a body on somebody else and not just running off and taking off in transition. That's something Monique Billings would bring in terms of an identity piece for any team that she's brought into. And I don't think there's another team in the W that's contending that could really value that more than the Phoenix Mercury could. And then the last big part in that, Gabby Williams, she speaks for herself. For those that don't know, she spent time here in Chicago with Kahleah Copper. They certainly have a relationship. There's certainly some overlap in terms of their athleticism, the uber athleticism at which they play the game, the pace at which they play the game at, and some of the ways that they operate on the offensive side of the floor. It's not redundant to the point where you can't have them on the floor at the same time, though, because they garner different types of attention. And honestly, they can play well off of each other. People talk about everything that Gabby did on the Olympic stage. I think one of the biggest things and something that she continues to work towards over the course of her career, when she does have the ball in her hands, when teams try to play with soft coverage, whether that be in pick and roll or if she's working in isolation, giving her space, instead of trying to be stubborn and blow by all the time, knocking down that three-pointer with consistency or working on that 1 and 2 dribble mid-range pull-up. She's behind in terms of looking at where Kahleah Copper is, especially in that respect. However, she's taking great strides herself in her game. And I think that another big thing with Gabby, especially if she's in a Phoenix Mercury context, she's not going to have the ball in her hands to the extent that she did with the French national team, but she is a sensational cutter. She just has an innate sense and feel for timing and how to manipulate advantages when she doesn't have the ball in her hands. I think that's something she showcased when she was with Seattle prior to going back to France and prioritizing her French national ties over coming back to the stateside. Whatever team is lucky to get their hands on her, should she decide to come back this season or going into next season, they're going to be getting one of the best defenders, I didn't even get to that part. One of the best defenders in all of W basketball, one of the best athletes in general, and also one of the best cutters. And those are three things that you would love to have as a periphery type of piece in an ancillary role around any type of big three or for any type of starting lineup or potential 6-player type of role.
I really want to speak to Monique Billings for just a second because we've talked a lot about her this season and kind of like what it would look like with her coming here. But something Johanna said actually, and I've talked about ad nauseum, is the vibe of this team has just been so damn good. Like, you know, there's been some adversity that's been thrown this team's way as far as injuries, things on socials, this, that, and the other, so on and so forth. They've always kept the main thing, and that's winning. And I think Monique would really, really add to that culture. And I'm not saying that the other two would take away in any way, shape, or form, but off the eye test, Monique Billings would fit in extremely well with this Phoenix Mercury team. And as Steven just told us, would do exactly the thing that they're lacking and probably the thing that is prohibiting them the most from competing for a spot in the, you know, WNBA finals this season. In my professional opinion, they've got the defense. They've got the shooters. Like we all know what about shooting with Phoenix Mercury. But you know, as far as the one thing that the Phoenix Mercury just needs to just boost them over that little hump to get them to where the Aces and the Sun and New York Liberty kind of look like, rebounding is it. And I just think that the identity would only improve with her. Shout out to our good friend TMB, Tyler McDowell Blanken in the chat. Proud of y'all and your growth. Great episode, TMC. Tyler, what's it like being my favorite person this side of the Mississippi River? I need to know. Comment down in the chat. Please just let me know. And then David in the chat asked us a question. Who would you deal before the trade deadline to make salary cap space for Billings or Williams? You know, and that is a very good question. And I think that there is a certain answer that we need about injuries before either of us can confidently answer that question. I could be wrong about Steven, but I think that that is the case and that we just need a little more clarity because I think there's a lot of truth, right, to that they know what they need. Nate told us that, you know, he'll tell us that again tomorrow pregame. Like they know what they want. And so I think for them, just finding the thing that makes the most sense as far as getting them in positionally a great position for the playoffs with 11 roster spots is going to be challenging for them. They pay out a lot of money for their top 3 or 4 players. So keeping the, you know, under the salary cap space is definitely going to be a hot topic of conversation when the Phoenix Mercury inevitably do make whatever signing that they're going to make. But I don't really want to see any trade. Personally, I love our squad of 11. And I was actually going to give our new friend of the show, Natasha Mack, a big shout for sharing that picture of her and Diana on her shoulders this morning. God, it brought me a great stomach laugh, you know?
Yeah, that Tasha's she's hilarious. I wish I had the opportunity to meet her in a non-professional context, just when she was walking around WNBA Live. I was very jealous of the Mercury fans that we met that actually had the chance to see her and, you know, just kind of share the vibe with her for even a couple of seconds, if not a few minutes. She's a character, but just kind of swinging things back to the Monique Billings part, just to provide some context to explain what we're speaking to. The Phoenix Mercury this season, grabbing the available offensive rebounds over the course of their games this season, of their 25 games, they're only grabbing 26% of the offensive rebounds available. Now, some of that is scheme and principles from Nate. Rather than crashing the glass, he errs on them getting back in transition to stop opponents versus sending multiple players to the basket to try to, you know, obviously grab an offensive rebound. So some of that is scheme, but some of it is also just them not having that knack in terms of players outside of Brittany Griner that understand the art of offensive rebounding and how to kind of work to grab those extra possessions. And then if we look at it on the other side of the floor, defensively, in terms of grabbing the percentage of rebounds available for them on that end of the floor, which is the more important part that we've spoken to, they're only grabbing 68.5% of those available rebounds. that is 10th in the W. Those two numbers combined put them at 12th in the W in terms of total rebound percentage, only at 47.6%. Needless to say, that's not even close to being able to get it done for this team. And that's why there's just so much sense between them and their attraction, which we're speculating. We're not speaking on knowing that they're going to actually go after Monique. We're just speculating that the hand and glove fit just makes entirely too much sense to ignore. All of that statistical context applied. Looking at Monique Billings this season, 12 games started for the Dallas Wings, 24 games total played. She's grabbing 6.6 rebounds a game. And for context, with the Phoenix Mercury, she will be leading the team in total rebounds. That's 6.6. That just speaks to, like we said, the impact that she brings on that side of the floor. And just for more detailed context, she's grabbing 1.9 offensive rebounds a game and 4.8 defensive rebounds a game. So her impact there is just you can't ignore it. And if you kind of extrapolate it and take it to a per 36 lens, she's grabbing 9.4 total rebounds in that kind of spectrum of minutes per Basketball Reference. So needless to say, the fit is there. She addresses so many different needs for the team. And I just think the sense is too much to ignore unless there's a bigger fish that you're going after in terms of players that are actually available and potentially could be attained.
Yeah, like Steven said, unless there's a big piece of this puzzle we're missing, it almost seems too perfect to not, at least yap about a little bit, not to at least speculate just a wee bit, right?
Exactly.
But Steven, there's something coming up in 2 short weeks. And, I saw Billy. He said it's the Trick Questions podcast. I would actually agree with him at this point.
If you said that to Nate, he would know exactly which podcast you're talking about.
Yep, he surely would. He surely would. But Steven, do you know what comes up in 2 weeks?
Might it be that little takeover party thingy that we do? The trick question takeover, I guess that's what we're calling it.
Yes, the official PHNX Mercury takeover and pregame parties presented by our good friends over at Circle K. Can you sense my excitement bursting out of my bubble for this? I mean, seriously, August 26th, it's a Monday at 6 p.m. Listen, I'm actually sorry, the game's at 7. Don't let me be a big fat liar. That being said, though, we're going to pregame for this wonderful occasion over at the Desmond. We're going to grab some beverages, some light snacks, maybe some dinner. Our good friends Saul, I think Big Hatter Eric Ruby might be there. I think. Could be wrong.
Eric better be there. He can't be square now. Come on.
I'm gonna try my best. I got to make sure they got a ticket for me. Can't just say yes. I got to make sure that because they're in hot demand. So
this is true.
You're so right. You're so right. But if he can be there, I know he will, because quite frankly, the Phoenix Mercury is taking on the New York Liberty. We've talked about it ad nauseum, how excited Erika is for this game. To be quite frank, listen, we just got to watch Diana, Kalia, Brittany Griner, and Sabrina Ionescu and Brianna Stewart all play a basketball alongside each other. And so what more fun thing to do other than that can I think of other than to watch them play basketball against one another? Literally nothing. So like Eric and my good friend Steven said, be there or be square.
Can't say it no better than that. Just pull up on us. We looking forward to having a great time. Another one.
Facts. But Steven, you sent me something this morning and you said they've given us a lot to talk about today. I said, oh no, what's about to come away on my phone? And he sent me this article and I opened it up and I was immediately flabbergasted. I mean, we'll start with that. Flabbergasted was my immediate thought. What about you?
My immediate thought was, huh? And then once I like 2 or 3 times after reading the top 25, I then thanked ESPN for lobbing this content bomb off the backboard for us to dunk down Blake Griffin style or Gerald Green style for my Phoenix Suns fans. Thank y'all for tossing it off the backboard for us, because we are about to do some work on this one.
And, I won't bore you guys by just naming the whole list, but we're to start with just talking about the Phoenix Mercury players that are listed on this. And I want to talk about Kahleah Copper. ESPN got our girl ranked at 10. And, you know, when I text, as you can see, I'm speechless. You know, they obviously don't watch the Mercury play basketball, first of all. But second of all, to look at their record from just a 500 lens and say we thought they would be a whole lot, you know, more over 500 is personally insane and proves the point that I just made, that they quite literally do not watch the WNBA. But Stephen, I'm going to ask you actually the question that you said I know you cannot do. Can you name 4 current WNBA players that are better than Kahleah Copper?
Absolutely not. You cannot name 4 players that are better than Kahleah Copper.
Follow-up
question.
question.
Yes, talk to me.
So what player or players for that matter this season are better are proving to be better this season than Kahleah Copper? What player?
The only names that I would accept and understand having an argument for are A'ja Wilson, Napheesa Collier, Alyssa Thomas, and Sabrina Ionescu. That's it. That's all. I know there's some other names. There are some loud names that can certainly stake some claim post-Olympic break. Those names are averaging more points than Kahleah has. Those names are not performing in the clutch for their respective teams the way that Kahleah Copper is. And those players have not been as consistently dominant this season as Kahleah Copper has. She's currently second in the league in scoring, and she's flirted with and quite literally has been the best scorer in the W at multiple stretches this season. To which, for anybody that might not necessarily watch the Mercury games, I hope that you all tap into our podcast so that we can kind of inform you, so that we can be better with putting forth these top 25 lists and make them more accurate. That Kahleah Copper is a top 5 player. I won't accept anything less than that for her 2024 campaign. And I only expect for her to ascend up that list post-Olympic, post-All-Star break. I think she's going to take her gold medal performance and take the gold medal that she received, and she is going to run laps with it. She is primed for this home stretch. She knows that they have a lot of food left on the table in terms of where they desire to be going into the playoffs, not just record-wise and not just standing-wise, but level of play-wise, because they know if they get to the level they need to be at, she's going to have to be a certain type of dog that she's been on consistency this season. And I don't think that she's turning back in any capacity. I think if anything, the clip is going to be completely unloaded for Kahleah. And I think you all are going to get a nice little idea of what playoff Kahleah Copper looks like as these games are all meaningful going down this home stretch in the last 18.
2 things. So to answer Dylan AZ, that will be because of our record. If you look at everyone above her, it's teams above the Mercury. It's stupid, but that's how things like that go. And listen, I would respect that if that were true. But the 9th ranked player happens to be Erika Hamby of the LA Sparks. And I'm not sure if y'all know the Sparks record, but it's not good. Okay. And I don't mean to sound feisty, but quite frankly, my good friend David Veenstra in the chat pointed out that ESPN was wrong in more ways than one, and that she is the 2nd leading scorer in the WNBA and not the 3rd. So quite frankly,
like I mentioned, yep.
Yeah, they don't watch. And so that brings me to my question for you though, Stephen, in what would you rank Kahleah Copper in terms of, you know, where she lies amongst her WNBA peers this season?
Well, for context, I'm going to go ahead and mention the names that are ahead of Kahleah Copper. So we mentioned that she's 10th. And I also want to make sure people understand that ESPN also had Kahleah Copper ranked 19th in terms of the top 25 players headed into this season. So do with that context what you will. But the 9 players ahead of Kahleah Copper from 9 to 1, Erika Hamby, Neko Ogwumike, Sabrina Ionescu, Jackie Young, Jonquel Jones, Alyssa Thomas, Napheesa Collier, Breanna Stewart, and A'ja Wilson. Again, you cannot name more than 4 players that are better than Kahleah Copper this season. I know this is a very subjective thing, But there's just some things when you are watching the league as a whole and you're paying attention to how these players are impacting their respective teams. You just can't say that this many players are better than Kahleah Copper in the W this season. Like it just doesn't work. And I would actually love if either of the people involved with ESPN were able to hop on the podcast so we could talk back and forth about this, because that would be one hell of a conversation to have, just to kind of gauge the lens that they're looking at the game through. And so the reason why these things kind of get me worked up, and again, I would preface by saying I know that these things are subjective. The issue with it is that when it comes time for these players to get their just due in terms of what they've earned, in terms of league-wide voting for awards and things like that, that are contractually, they have incentives within their contracts for these awards that they could potentially receive. I just don't want a lack of attention to detail or understanding or attention being paid to the game to get in the way of a player getting their just due. Kahleah Copper, as I talked about on our Monday episode from the week before last, is going to be all WNBA first team. By way of being all WNBA first team, there is no way that you can put 4 players ahead of her in terms of looking at the league as a whole. Her body of work speaks for itself. Her growth as a player speaks for itself, which we've all detailed on this podcast. And it just, she's top 5. I'm just leave it at that. She's top 5.
It was borderline offensive to wake up and, when I opened the list at Steven's request, I scrolled till I saw my girl's Ka's name, because that was obviously what I was looking for.
I'm scroll entirely too much.
And as my thumb, I'm like, I'm getting tired. Like, why am I scrolling so far? Like, and Amanda in the comments, Ka is going to make people put respect on her name in the second half of the season. And not that I want to negate any of the first half of the season or the Olympics for that matter, but I absolutely think you're right in that she is going to be on watch, and she's going to be wanting everybody to be on watch, and she is not going to be playing no games in the second half of the season. Copper is a top 3 player, and there is no ifs, ands, or buts about that right now. And honestly, just to kind of paint this a little more for you, they have Erika Ogunbowale at 13. 13, the 40 points inside the Footprint Center. I know y'all all remember it. You still feel it. You might still have a nightmare or two every once in a while, like your good friend Erika Day. We really gonna let them rank Erika Ogunbowale at 13th? Are y'all freaking serious right now? I know the answer ain't yes. So with that being said, let's get on to Brittney Griner, because she also.
Wait, one more thing.
Okay. We wait.
One more very important thing. Very, very important. First of all, let's woosah. Deep breath. Breathe in, breathe out. A'ja Wilson, the bona fide best player in the W in the world. She is not going to call you the name that she called you as a term of endearment if she can name 8 players in the W that are quote unquote better than you. She's just not. There's a level of respect that comes with that. Competitor to competitor, we're not even talking about them being teammates. There's a level of respect that comes with that. She's not going to call you that if you're not one of the few hers that are existing in the W. Additionally, A'ja also mentioned that Kahleah was the player that she was most excited to, play with on the Olympic stage. That's not something that she's going to say when you're not up to that level and that standard and that stratosphere of basketball players. I just wanted to bring that context, coming quite literally from the best in the league, to say that involuntarily, mind you. She could have picked anybody else. She could have said anything else after that Olympic game. She said what she said, attitude, and walked off.
Wow, Steven, I'm loving the reference you just made right now, because per attitude, walk off. That being said, though, like I said, we're gonna move on to our BG, big guard, big hustler, big pops, whatever you want to call her. I really don't care. That being said, Brittney Griner, they got her ranked at 16. And listen, let's start with the obvious. The little description here talks about the injuries. The injuries have plagued, I think, the public image of BG. I think it's been a little bit challenging, not necessarily for her to get her footing back, but in order for the kind of general pop to see her value on this team, they really got to be tuned in with the Mercury. And as we've kind of expressed, these folks clearly weren't paying the most attention. So that being said, she's dropped 5 spots since her preseason ranking of 11. But I do think that that has a lot to do with her, like I said, the injury. What about you, Stephen?
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. There's been it's been an integration period for BG. She's been trying to, get her footing back. She's been trying to get her feel back. And she didn't mention that she was really truly feeling like herself on the court until shortly before the Olympics / All-Star break. Now, naturally, for her especially, being able to play basketball as she's still trying to get back into her full basketball form was extremely important. I think outside of like maybe Asia Wilson and Breanna Stewart and maybe even Alyssa Thomas a little bit, there's no other player on Team USA that played their exact style of basketball. You could throw Chelsea Gray in that as well. Outside of BG, those only those other 4 players played to their relatively to their usual role. BG, I think she's going to have an extremely loud post-Olympics / post-All-Star break as well, not unlike Kahleah Copper. I think that for past anything external, I think that these players know that there's a certain level, like I mentioned with Kahleah, that they have to get to get to the goals and desires that they have set out for themselves this season. I think they all acknowledge and understand that they haven't quite been there this season, but they also understand that there's still plenty more time left for them to get it right. Now, they have to obviously figure that part out within their process, but they'll be fine. And it's going to be with these 2 players just spearheading everything. In the games where Kahleah Copper and Brittany Griner have scored north of 22, 23 points a game, I don't think they may have lost one game that went into overtime, but they've been consistently just kind of beating up on teams when both of those 2 are getting that north of 22, 23-ish points in any specific game. And BG is going to be huge in all of that because they need her rim protection with everything that they do defensively. And they also need the attention that she garners in the paint with her post touches and everything that she does as a scorer in the post, arguably the best scorer from there and one of the best in league history. And then also her functionality as a screener and her ability to space. She's just such an abundant presence. And I think that that's only going to just prove more profound as she gets her feet back under herself. And I do think she's in for an extremely loud post-Olympic, post-All-Star stretch.
I love Gringo Billy's comment. If I were an investor, I'd buy the Griner stock. Huge facts. She told us on a media day, she wanted to be depoy. I'm not going to say the wish is no longer possible because, but I think that expectations have been adjusted a little bit, again, due to the injury. That being said, though, I think that we should see a massive step up in play after the Olympic break. Kind of like Dylan said in the comments, she was injured, expecting a baby, and knew she was going to the Olympics. And I think the Olympics in general just loomed over her in a lot bigger of a way than any of us really spoke on. And so I think it's going to be a big thing for her to just be able to focus on the Mercury, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I'm really excited. We got basketball tomorrow. Chris in the comments, Olympic BG was much higher though. Facts. She was playing her ass off. I ain't gonna lie. She was moving things forward. Yeah, I would agree, Chris. Expecting big things moving forward, BG. I absolutely agree. I mean, I expect her to come back from the break extremely locked in and ready to play some hoops. She's probably super excited to get back to Phoenix now because they haven't been home since the Olympics. So she hasn't got to see her baby yet. So, I'm sure she has gotten to see the baby, but since the Olympics. So I'm sure she's real excited to get back home to Phoenix. So that being said, everyone be sure to get your tickets for Sunday. Come out to the Footprint Center, hang out with us, stop by, say hi if you see me, and just come watch the Merc basketball. We only got 8 more home games, and I can't express enough to you how bad I wish it was 28. You know what I mean? 8 is just not enough.
Yeah. And just kind of to the BG point, when you have the adversities that she's had this season in particular, from injury to the baby and not knowing if the baby was going to be there on time, with the baby's due date trickle into when she's supposed to be leaving for France with her Olympic commitments, that's a lot of weight that's a lot of weight to carry mentally. The fact that burden, and it's not a burden in a negative sense, but that burden in terms of something that's consistently on your conscience has been she's been liberated from it, and she can just kind of live life and kind of be free again. I think that means everything positive that you could possibly say in terms of adjectives for her coming back and getting back to Mercury hoop post-Olympic break. And she's one of the players I'm most excited to watch on the team, obviously, naturally, but also across the league. I think that context matters because, like Johanna mentioned, these players are people, and there's real life scenarios that happen outside of basketball that can kind of eat away at the conscience of a basketball player or an athlete in general. When you're able to just be yourself and not have to try to wear multiple hats in that, and you could just be where your feet are, there's a lot of value that comes with that. And for a player that's been as dominant as BG's been over the course of her career to historic levels, I think that means everything. Be ready for BG post-Olympic break. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Steven, are you super pumped to be tapped in with the Merc and the Sky simultaneously tomorrow? Are you super amped? Or how you feeling about double duty?
Well, it's no different than any day because I'm amped every morning. I wake up and get to tap in with multiple teams. That's a privilege that I never take for granted. And I'm just excited. The fact that both teams that I watch the most, I watch the league as a whole, but there's no two teams I watch more than the Sky and the Mercury. I get to watch them under one roof, potentially talk to multiple players as well as both coaches in one sitting. Yes, I'm looking forward to it. It feels like my birthday is tomorrow. I'm very excited, and I'm genuinely looking forward to it both professionally, but also just as a basketball lover. I think sometimes you can get lost in, remembering what the foundation is, not getting into this just because, I'm trying to get paid. Obviously, that's part of it. Biggest thing is I just love basketball, and the two teams I'm covering most, I get to watch under one roof. Also getting to see the player that ingratiated herself with Chicago to the extent that her name became synonymous with the city in terms of the women's basketball realm, and they literally put the first three letters of her name in the middle of the name of the city, Chicago. Like, that's how synonymous she became. I'm looking forward to it. I think the fans are gonna really enjoy Kalia, at least pregame, because once the ball goes up, not sure she's going to be working in favor of the Sky winning this game. I think she's going to be looking to put on a show and really set a tone for this final 18 game marathon as they kind of round the curve getting into that home stretch. She's going to be in her Sha'Carri Richardson bag in terms of sprinting to the finish line in a loud fashion and chucking up the deuces to people as she's passing them up.
And she's going to smile while she does it.
And she gonna smile while she does it, and she gonna talk her talk too. She gonna be her. So I'm looking forward to that, especially like I mentioned, with her having her first chance to come back to Wintrust Arena. It's gonna be a little emotional early on, just because this is where she really grew into her own. But once that ball goes up, capital D, all cap dog, Kalia Copper is coming out, and it's gonna be fun to watch.
Two things. First of all, I can't wait to watch her put the stompage on Sky Guy. Second, though, I got beef with that guy. Second, though, do you think that the Sky do a little tribute video in the same way that the Mystics did for Tosh when she returned?
100%. And unfortunately, I'll preface now, unfortunately, a lot of the B-roll in this highlight reel is going to come from that 2021 championship round. So it's going to be funny, the fact that she's going to be wearing the jersey that she was ultimately going up against. I'll just imagine that Diana's going to have something slick to say to her at some point. And BG might actually too, which would be hilarious. And naturally, the moment with Sophie is certainly going to be highlighted within all of that as well. So that context is just bizarre, but it's going to be a vibe. They're definitely going to do right by her, and I look forward to seeing it. I'll make sure I record it so everybody gets a chance to watch it on the timeline as well.
Cool. Well, Steven, as amped and excited as I am, I got to get to bed like ASAP No Rocky. I mean, I got to take my makeup off, put my hair up, and lay down. I'm out. So that being said, Steven, where can they find you so they can get all of our coverage for Kalia's first time in Chicago since her departure?
Yeah, for sure. I'll be double timing tomorrow, so I'll be doing a whole lot of tweeting while I'm there at the game. from a Mercury lens and a Sky lens. Follow me on Twitter, as you see at the bottom of the screen, at StayTrueS.3. Plenty of stuff coming after tomorrow's game down this home stretch, and obviously, more importantly, going into the playoffs for this team. Looking forward to tapping in on YouTube as well. More film sessions as well as more ring content coming on Go PHNX. So be looking out for those things, and don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter from Basketball Reference, because that thing will be live and hot going into Friday morning, so you can kind of keep up with the happenings of the W on a nightly/morning basis by way of your email address.
And before I forget, I do need to give a small shout out to our good friends over at CHGO, because yesterday, Stephen and I had a lot of fun over on the CHGO Sky Show. And this coming Monday, not to ruin it, actually, you know what? This isn't a prediction. It's a spoiler. We got another crossover coming on Monday, and I'm real excited about this. And, you know, I was actually talking with our good friend and producer, Eric Ruby, before the show started. And I said, you know, as long as the Chicago doesn't put that stompage on the Phoenix Mercury, there shouldn't be too many assets to prepare. You know what I mean? Like, it should be a pretty chill show. And so that being said, I'm looking real forward to watching the Mercury take on the Sky tomorrow in Chicago. I'm also looking forward to watching them take on the Sky again on Sunday and the Fever in between. There's a lot of basketball to be played over the next 4 days. Some of you guys I'll see in person on Sunday at the Footprint Center. And if not, tap in with me on Twitter over at Erika Lee Day. And that's Erika spelled with a K. And on the PHNX_Mercury Twitter account as well. I think I have gotten all of it. Did I miss anything, Steven?
We all good. Looking forward to these games this weekend. Let's get to it. Monday's going to be fun.
All righty then. Y'all, it's been fun. It's been real. But I will see y'all on Sunday and on Monday for our next episode. Thank you.
We all silly like the mayor.